Hey guys, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and this time I'm playing in the AMX CDC. It's a tier 8 French premium medium tank and it's one of my go-to vehicles when I want to earn quite a lot of credits, not have to fire that many premium rounds, especially in a matchup like this where I'm not having to deal with tier 10 tanks, and more importantly, just bomb it around like a crazy Frenchman. This tank is ludicrously fast, 57 kilometers an hour top speed limit, 35.58 power to weight ratio, allows you to just zip up slopes. Fair enough, the ground resistances on this tank kind of balance that out, and on hard terrain we're at 1.5 ground resistance and 1.7 on medium terrain, but even upslope here we're going at 32, which allows us to get into a position aggressively and put a shot into probably one of the most important tanks I'd say on Sand River for assault, and that is the MT-25. If that MT-25 does loops, as I'm going to show you now, if the MT-25 simply does loops along this place here, he's going to be able to pretty much spot most of my team who all like to hide at the back, understandably because they're getting into defensive locations. However, sometimes putting yourself into a defensive location is not the best way to earn credits, it's not the best way to pull off a huge amount of experience. Because remember, when you're spotting your opponents, fair enough, you're not helping your WN8, but you are certainly helping your experience. You get 50% of the experience, well, the total experience, when your allies damage an enemy tank. And that's only as good as damaging it yourself if you can't see it. And so by being in this aggressive location here, we're getting some early vision up, we're keeping the enemies off that ridgeline, which means that our allies stay hidden for longer. And also, maybe we're getting a little bit of support from the 3 artilleries. Now, one of the focuses of this video is I want to highlight, and I was thinking about maybe making this a little bit of a series, talking through some of the most overpowered locations on the maps of World of Tanks. Kind of like an impromptu map tactics, but more focuses on the gameplay, which for me is a lot more interesting and requires, it's a lot more manageable and, shall we say, sustainable, unlike the map tactics series was for me. So from here, the reason why this location is just so ridiculously overpowered is because if you've got about 8 or 10 degrees of gun depression, you can keep yourself pretty much hull down. You'll spot all the way across here. You'll spot anyone who tries to pass up here. You'll also catch glimpses of tanks that try to use this ridgeline. And as we saw, we can also catch the Skoda T40, who was situated, I believe, up here when we were taking punts at him. This position is really just truly dominant, also for another few reasons. One, any tanks that like to situate themselves along here, you get to have nice, easy, safe shots into. And if you've got exceptionally good view range, you can spot tanks as they make their way around the corner. Don't be afraid to blind fire that corner as well if you know that there are vehicles that you have a chance of penetrating. And if you feel like the enemy aren't spotting you and playing aggressively against you, you can also harass this ridgeline up here. And as we're going to see later on, be able to put pressure towards the east of the map. Truly, this is, I'd say, probably the most overpowered location on any map, on any game mode. Assault, standard, encounter, it doesn't really matter. Although I do have to be careful because remember, I am in a very lightly armored French medium tank, and if the artillery does hit me, and remember this is quite a large French medium tank as well, it is going to punish me. Even the FV304, I'm very lucky doesn't penetrate me there, and he only manages to do 160 damage to me. Now that's a great result because he was able to penetrate me. I don't know the exact alpha damage of that self-propelled gun, but I expect it's probably about 450, and that would be truly painful. So from here, the enemies are just really let the mid-ridge go. They're not providing any vision, and so that allows me to dictate the combat here against this Tiger. We're firing through the bush. Remember, we can't see him through there, but we're going to blind fire through a few shells at him anyway, and we're going to see if we're going to be whittling down his health. What you see me doing here is basically holding my right mouse button down where he was last spotted, and it looks like our shells were going in. Unfortunately, that one doesn't hit him and I don't secure his life, and I'm worried that the MT-25 spots us. But right now, look, the heavy tanks managed to sneak across. While I was distracted by the Tiger, I didn't spot the enemy tanks as they make their way over there, and I only managed to get one shot into the T-34, which doesn't penetrate, and oh, absolute disaster. I've effectively allowed those 2 tier 8 heavy tanks to cross. Luckily, one shot does go in towards the end. It also tracks the T-34, who quickly puts them back on and gets themselves out of that very dangerous position. So just to highlight this position here, You've got to make sure that you're in this location if you want to be spotting people that cross along here. You'll have perfect vision all the way along here, and you'll just be taking gigantic chunks out of your opponents. But right now, let's not focus on the position, so to say. Let's focus on what I was thinking and why I'm making this aggressive play back towards here. Well, obviously, as soon as the enemies manage to get around this corner, you've got no more chance. That position becomes useless. It becomes redundant. So what you want to do is leave, and you have to harass the players who are around here. You have to stop them from getting into your artillery. You have to stop them from flanking around, because as soon as they get this ridge line along here, then your position is awful. And all you can do then is go to around about here on the map and be able to get shots across at them, because you always want to be hull down. You always want to be in a position where you're protected. At least you've got to try and get, I'd say, about 180 degrees of protection, if that makes sense. By coming back here, we managed to harass those two tanks. Unfortunately, the T-34-85 does take our ammo rack, but luckily we do have a repair kit, and some people... Do you know what I would almost recommend in the AMX CDC if you don't want to use coffee like I do in this vehicle, is to perhaps use a small repair kit and a large repair kit, because this tank just takes ammo rack damage. And also, if you do get tracked in this vehicle, you do not want to stay out in the open for very long, because you're a gigantic target with absolutely no armor. You're probably one of the juiciest tanks to shoot in the game. Now we fire an APCR round there at the IS-3, but it doesn't look like it goes in. Well, it doesn't look like it definitely doesn't go in. That's unfortunate, so I decide let's not bother with him, and instead let's load AP again and go after the MT-25. So 2,700 damage. We are nearly 7 minutes into the game though. That's not that impressive, but it's still pretty damn good for a tier 8 premium, and you know you are going to be making a big payday when you start to get into this total. So we harass the MT-25, taking him out the game. I definitely hit him earlier on, yes I did, but I didn't do all of the damage to him. Luckily, by making that play, fair enough, we only killed, shall we say, low-tier targets, the T-34-80, the T-34-85, sorry, and also the Hellcat and the MT-25. But it was very important to harass them, because we stopped them from taking that flank and digging in and extending view range for their artillery. Now we've got the IS-3 on the back foot, and we can return to pretty much originally where we were. And as long as you're not getting spotted in this location, it's just completely dominant. You engage the east, you engage the west, you spot the north. It really is absolutely ridiculous, and I would thoroughly recommend, you know what, even some tank destroyers with flexible guns going into that position at the start of the game. I've seen a Grilla, I think on Tuesday during one of my live streams, or on Thursday. He did 8,600 damage from that position. It wasn't a 10-minute game, I don't believe. And I think he died before the end of the game as well. Absolutely ridiculous. Really, if you are defending, I mean, don't overcrowd that position. If you see all of your allies going there and they're leaving gigantic holes on the rest of your flanks, then you might not want to use it. But really, it is the prime location on Sand River Assault, and it's probably a location where I've had some of the highest experience games, I believe, in the last few patches from. So, you know what, some things can't be going wrong with it, right? So we're quite lucky there that the S-51 managed to miss us. The AMX CDC is a large, fat target, and if that shell had hit us, that would have definitely removed the 847 remaining hit points that we have. And that's because this vehicle has 30mm of frontal armor on the turret and on the hull, and 20mm on the side. That is absolutely garbage. But, you know, fair enough, you sacrifice armor capabilities with this tank, but you get a great rate of fire. The rate of fire exactly 8.22. That is now better than the STA-2 since that got the nerf. And of course, the mobility. And you know what? Sometimes you don't need armor to outplay opponents. Here we can see a T-28 prototype. He was on 80% of his hit points when we started. We put one into him on the move. Gonna try and track him here. Beautiful shot into his tracks. Look at that mobility. Jink to his side. He cannot turn his turret the whole way around. This poor guy. He tries to turn his tracks in the correct way to be able to get his gun round. Poor guy, you know, I mean, feels bad, man. But then again, that's 964 damage and probably a little bit of tracking damage on him there. Finish off the Skoda T40. That's our 7th kill. Now up to 4,580. And who knows how much spotting until we see the post-game stats. And I was just hoping, come on, Radley Walters. No 8th kill here. But still, a fantastic round, showcasing one of my favorite positions on Sand River Assault. So really this round wasn't too complicated. I just showcased how dominant the center of the map is. And even if the enemy do decide to come around here and come around here, you can just drop back, and this is the safe location for artillery. Well, against the enemy artillery. If you're along here, you see this flat part, that is rather dangerous for getting hit by artillery. What you saw me doing through this replay, and if you didn't, go and rewatch it, is I reversed my tank up along the slope here. And by getting up this very well angled surface, it means that their shell trajectory, their arc, can't quite manage to get you. And they're most likely, well, they sometimes still can, but you increase your survivability and the chances of them missing dramatically. So I thoroughly recommend whenever you're spotted, you reverse your way along here and you should be safe. The key plays are then to increase the vision for your team to try and stop your opponents from sneaking their way along here, because as soon as they get towards the sandbanks, then you're probably going to have to fall back and use some other position. The only thing you really have to worry about in this position is if the enemies decide to rush into the dip. But if they do that, then you can actually poach them from up here. And it is very, very, very efficient at just whittling down them as they make their way around. And they have to be afraid. They have to be afraid of artillery dumping shells over at them, and sometimes tanks sneaking at the back, getting shots into them as they try and come after you around this corner. And it's the same deal over here. I just love poaching this corner here. Sometimes you'll see the enemies try and rush over here, but then they get themselves into such an awkward situation where they're trying to advance. They think they're using the Sand River on this map to be able to progress, but then they figure out they're in this open area, and they sometimes don't expect a tank to be in such a dug-in, very easily defendable location here. They're trying to shoot over at these ridge lines, they're trying to avoid artillery, they're in a complete disarray, and that is usually where you can get your easiest shots in without even taking any damage in the first place. So an awesome round here for the AMX Chasseur de Chars. We managed to pick up a high caliber for our 5,056 damage that we did, a top gun for the 7 kills, and also a tank sniper because we dealt most of that damage at long range. To be exact, that was 3,000 damage from a range of 300 meters. The AMX can be a proficient mid to long range sniper. Perhaps more importantly, considering that I was playing a premium tank, we did make a whopping load of credits, 152,000. After we resupply the coffee and the ammunition that we find, that's still nearly 100,000 profit, and would still be 50 even without a premium account. And this was a whopping amount of experience. Remember what I was saying about spotting for yourself and spotting for your allies? 1,773 base experience points for our 1,600 spotting as well. So I've just run down some statistics to showcase just how powerful this position is, and let me try and explain this for you. Here are 40 of my highest experience games out, excluding the ones that I've already showcased on the channel, which are here. And out of those 40 games, there are 10 of them, i.e. 25%, that were played on Sand River. And when you consider that there are actually 40 maps in World of Tanks, the fact that 25% of my higher experience games, so to say, happen on Sand River, when statistically it should be near a kind of 1 game or possibly 1 or 2 games, it really showcases how crazy it is for getting lots of credits, lots of experience, and perhaps hitting that ace tanker in one of your favorite vehicles. Anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, or maybe the position was just useful to you. If it was, please consider giving it a like. It really helps the channel out. And if you want to see more awesome AMX CDC action, then click through up here to see me defending against a horde on Malinovka. And let me know in the comments down below what is, in your opinion, the most overpowered location on any map in the game. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.